there, good afternoon. Kalla here. Welcome to my live stream. So, today we're going to be playing more Taisho Alice, more of the Red Riding Hood route. And so, last time we found out that Red is just really, really, really not good with women. Like, at all. Then we fell in a lake, got a cold. He also got a cold, and we ended up with accidental cuddles in bed. Oh, and the wolf turned up to be menacing. And I believe that's about it. So, let's go and continue from where we left off. So, the next day. This sucks. I was back at school after having stayed home sick yesterday, but when lunchtime rolled around, Wolf was nowhere to be found.
つまんなくて悪かったな。昼飯くらい一人で食え。
No, come on. Outed. I used to eat alone all the time, but that all changed once I met Wolf.
しかし、お前がぶっ倒れるとは思いもしなかった。今年の風は随分強力みたいだな。で、
Keep being mean to me and I'll give you my germs. I spread my arms out in a hugging gesture, only for Mr. Hunter to push my face away.
やめろ。
Oh, I'm just kidding. Not that I care if you get sick. I just feel bad if it spread around the school. I knocked his hand away and turned away in a huff.
ああ、そうか。それは良かったな。
I scowled at him. You're a jerk.
必要以上に干渉しないだけだ。
Because otherwise you'd get emotionally invested? His eyes narrowed slightly. Meanwhile, I chuckled to myself and began to pack away our empty lunchboxes. After school, I met up with Red near the forest entrance, and together we headed home. According to him, the shopping district was unsafe. Thus, we were forced to take a detour around it.
ご友人も風邪ですか?
Apparently, maybe there's a bug going around.
そういった話は聞きませんが。
Well, if he calls out sick tomorrow, I'd like to go check on him after school. Would that be okay?
別に構いません。
I'm pretty sure he lives...
彼?
Red fixed me with a dubious look.
あなたが毎日お弁当を作ってらっしゃるご友人は男性の方ですか?
You got a problem with that? Yeah?
そうですか。
For some reason, I thought I heard his tone deflate slightly. I stopped short.
どうしましたか?
He followed suit. I walked directly in front of him, stared into his eyes, and asked, You're dying to know more, aren't you?
気になりません。
He didn't hesitate even a fraction of a second. This wasn't enough to discourage me, of course. The other day he said to me, Keep acting like you're a sweet little lamb and some wolf's gonna come along and gobble you up. Awoo! Bullseye. Panic flickered across Red's expression. Yes?
気になります。
Make up your mind already. He turned away, blushing. The truth couldn't have been more obvious if he tried. So I decided to press further. Let me ask you this. Do you believe platonic friendship is possible between a man and a woman? I mean, personally, I do. Like, it's really easy.
急に何を?
I folded my hands behind my back and gently held his gaze. Me personally, I believe it is. Oh good, Eureka's like me.
そうですか?
I mean, sure, opposites attract, especially when it comes to the opposite sex.
せ
But that attraction doesn't have to be romantic. So I'd like to believe, anyway. The point is, my friend and I simply don't see each other that way. And do you know why that is?
わかりません.
Because I'm in love with someone else.
そうなのか.
He's not a very good actor, is he? Yep.
ですが、あなたは興味がなくても、相手は興味があるかもしれません。
What makes you say that? I stared at him wide-eyed. I hadn't expected him to argue with me about this.
あなたはその魅力的なレディーですし、あなたを慕う男の一人や二人いることでしょう。
Sorry, could you repeat that for me? Without cracking a smile, I held my index finger aloft in a one more time gesture.
一人や二人いることでしょう。
No, not that part. Could you start closer to the beginning from "You're a charming" also? He fell silent, probably from embarrassment. Poor guy. To spare him any further shame, I decided to change the subject a tiny bit. Do you want to know who it is I'm in love with?
し、
Yes?
知るか!
With this, I had evidently exceeded his patience. That's a shame. I sure wanted to tell you.
そんなことより、早く帰りましょう。
Oh, this guy. Visibly flustered, Red took off once more. Red, wait for me! I hastily hurried after him. Wow, your walk cycle looks so robotic.
うるさい! 誰のせいだと思ってるんですか?
My?
そんなことあるわけないような。
You think? Just outside the house, Red finally came to a stop. His nervous tension was gone, and in its place, a hard stare. Red? He extended a hand to silence me, then gestured to me in a way that suggested someone was in the house. Ooh. I nodded, then fell perfectly still.
あなたは門の外に。5分経っても私が戻ってこなかったら、近くの交番に駆け込んで応援を頼みます。
Understood. Be careful, okay?
はい。
On his signal, the two of us went our separate ways. Red headed into the mansion, carefully concealing his presence as he maintained constant surveillance of his surroundings. As for me, I stopped just outside the gate and waited there, per his instructions. This would soon prove to be the longest 5 minutes of my life. Each passing second felt like an eternity. I didn't have a watch on me, so instead I counted to 300 in my head. I couldn't very well see the house from here, so I just stared at the door, until... Red stepped outside, alone. He walked up to me, shaking his head sadly.
犯人らしき人物はすでにいませんでした。
Maybe we just missed them?
わかりません。ですが、裏口の扉が開いていました。
Shouldn't you go after them?
そうしたいところですが。 あなたを残すわけにはいきません。
Phew, like that matters.
いいわけありません。あなたが襲われでもしたらどうするんですか。
I flinched as he shouted at me.
すみません。
It's fine. He struck me as panicked somehow. Much as I wanted to reach out and soothe him, I knew it would only fluster him all the more, so I hastily suppressed the urge. I really do appreciate all of your concern. Will you stay with me then?
もちろんです。私はあなたを守るためにここにいるのですから。
This is just awful. I stared blankly at the wreckage before me. The flower vases and decorations in the entryway had all been knocked over, the cupboards flung open and their contents strewn all across the floor. All over the floor, even. Why? What did the flowers ever do to you?
ミス・アリス。
I could hear the sympathy in his voice. Sorry, I'm fine. I smiled to alleviate his concern, then bent down and scooped up a fallen flower. Poor thing. Just then I remembered the carnation sitting on my bedside table and took off running up the stairs.
ミス・アリス、待ってください。
My room was a complete disaster. My favourite bed sheets and curtains were ripped to shreds, and pillow stuffing covered the floor. I looked at the bedside table to find the flower vase was gone. At that point, I just wanted to cry my eyes out. Silently, I walked into the room and scooped the carnation out of the debris.
ミス・アリス、危ないです。
I felt a sharp pain in the tip of my finger and realised a bead of carnation red blood had formed there.
だから言ったでしょう。
Red grabbed me by the arm and dragged me down to the kitchen. After I rinsed off my wound, I wrapped my finger in cloth and clutched it over my chest. I'm fine now, Red. Please, just get this flower in some water. We can still save it.
そんなものよりもあなたの方が大事に決まっているでしょう。
I shrank away slightly. Seeing me flinch, Red seemingly snapped to his senses.
となってすみません。つい。
It's fine. After a long moment of silence, Red muttered under his breath.
こんなちっぽけな花など放っておけばよかったのに。
It's not worthless. It was a precious gift from you. His blonde lashes fluttered as he averted his gaze. I'm sorry for running off like that. And I'm sorry for scaring you.
いえ、謝るのはこちらの方です。私がついていながらあなたに怪我をさせてしまいました。
I shook my head. No, it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. He still didn't meet my gaze, so I repeated myself. You did nothing wrong. At this, he finally looked up. Thank you for helping me. I took his hand in mine as I spoke. Later, once my wound stopped bleeding, we examined the rest of the house to assess the extent of the damage. Nothing out of place here either.
荒らされていたのはあなたの部屋と居間、それから玄関だけのようですね。
Interesting. Yeah.
何か物を取られたということもないと。
Yeah. Red hastily scrawled into his notepad.
ちなみに、私が仕掛けていた罠は全て外されていました。足跡については、外も中も大量に残されていたので、何らかの手がかりにはなるかもしれません。それほど大きいものではありませんでしたが、女性のものとは考えにくいので、やはり男性の犯行とみて間違いないでしょう。
A relatively small man?
その可能性が高いと見ます。
This is looking even more suspicious for Wolf all the time, right?
念のため、犯人が必ず触れるだろう場所に指紋が残されているか確認もしておきましょう。
Fingerprints? Really?
ええ、扉や棚の上などには指紋が残されている可能性が高いですから。
As he spoke, Red began to dust a strange white powder on all the areas the culprit was likely to have touched. It felt like I was in a crime thriller. Afterwards, Red returned to me, looking grim. How'd it go?
残念ながら、これだけ荒らされているにもかかわらず、犯人とおぼしき指紋はただの一つすら残されていませんでした。
Wow. That's a shame.
ええ、部屋を荒らすこと以外は昨日とは打って変わって慎重な行動です。
Why would they do this? My voice wavered.
普通に考えると物取りの線が濃厚です。
But if so, wouldn't they search every room?
あなたへの執着から考えると、あなたに関係するものに限定されていたのかもしれません。
But nothing was stolen.
慌てて出て行ったところを見るに来てそう間もなかったのかもしれませんね。それか物取りでないとしたら、ただ誇示したかったのかもしれません。こちらはいつでもお前を襲うことができる、そんな風に。申し訳ありません。あなたを怖がらせたかったわけでは。
No, that's okay. Honestly, I'd rather you didn't try to tiptoe around my feelings. Just tell it to me straight.
そうですか。
Besides, I have nothing to fear with my knight in shining armor right here to protect me.
私のことですか。
Do you see any other guys standing around? Oh, come on, don't give me that. You said you'd protect me. I lost my patience and snapped at him.
私があなたを守ります。
That's the spirit. I shot him with finger guns. Phew, that's the last of it. Glad we could get the place all cleaned up. Red? Red stood, broom and dustpan in hand, staring out the window. Was he lost in thought? I slowly snuck up behind him and reached out to touch him. But before I made contact, Red jumped away in surprise. Scared you, huh?
何を
Trying to touch you, obviously. I almost got you too. I winked. Predictably, this set his cheeks aflame. Shouldn't you be used to it by now?
慣れるって。
Me and my antics, silly.
あなたと目が合うだけで拒否反応が出ると言いましたよね。
Mere eye contact. For eye. And I ignored you, because it was rude. I pouted my lips.
いや、すみません。
Don't apologize, you're just going to make me feel worse. This time I put my face in my hands and sobbed. You're such a jerk. I just want us to be friends, that's all.
Miss Alice.
Just kidding. I grinned at him, tilting my head cutely. Hey! I admit the crying was fake, but everything I said was the honest truth. The fight or flight comment did hurt my feelings, and I do want to be friends. I genuinely want to be close to you. Both physically and emotionally. I aimed a finger gun and fired a shot at his heart. Bang. As I smirked up at him, he averted his eyes and fell silent. Anyway, you were thinking about the wolf, am I right?
Hi.
Tell me, what's on your mind? Did you learn something new about them?
そんなことは。
His voice faltered. Just then, our conversation was interrupted by an ear-splitting crash. What the? I recognised it immediately as the sound of breaking glass. Which glass, you ask? The window pane directly behind Red.
大丈夫ですか?
The next thing I knew, Red had pulled me into an embrace. As I froze in surprise, he scooped me up into his arms and carried me to the relative safety of the bed. It was all so sudden. My heart was thumping out of control.
一体誰が?
Red looked over at the window. The answer was obvious, of course. It had to be the wolf.
怪我はありませんか?
No. I'm fine. Once he made sure I was unharmed, Red heaved a sigh of relief. Almost like he didn't even realise he'd embraced and carried me just now. What about you? Are you hurt at all? At last I found the mental composure to worry about something other than my own safety. Truth be told, I cared more about his well-being than my own.
私は大丈夫です。とにかく、あなたに怪我がなくてよかった。
Relief was written all over his face. Oh, Red. My heart skipped a beat. Embarrassed, I stared down at the floor. Grief, anger, and an even mix of emotions swirled in my chest. Now they've really crossed a line.
ねえ、確かに。
As my gaze wandered over the remains of the window, I noticed a baseball lying on the floor. Where did that come from? Red stopped and picked it up. Sorry, stooped. Red stooped and picked it up.
これは手紙?
I thought it was usually bricks with letters attached that people chuck through windows, not baseballs. Sure enough, there was a piece of paper affixed to it. I would have preferred a carrier pigeon. My light-hearted joke went unheard as Red unfolded and began to read the letter. His expression was so deadly serious, I didn't feel comfortable breaking the silence. But after he was done reading, or perhaps partway through, Red began to crumple the letter into a ball. What did it say?
あなたは読まない方がいい。
Please, just tell me. At my request, he reluctantly dropped the wad of paper into my palm. My heart thumping in my chest, I unfolded it and began to read. You betrayed me. I gave you a chance, but it looks like you still don't understand what it is you've done. If you refuse to admit your crime, then I'll kill someone you care about. And then I'll drown you in the lake. No crime goes unpunished. Repent your sins in hell. I repeat, no crime goes unpunished. It was, without a doubt, another blackmail letter. Unlike the first, however, it was dripping with malicious intent. Whoever they were demanding justice. I had anticipated something like this, of course, but it didn't make it any easier to swallow. No crime goes unpunished, I murmured aloud without realizing. I looked up to find Red staring at me, his hand outstretched in my direction.
いえ、これはその。
Look at his face. He awkwardly retracted his hand. He must have wanted to console me. Much as I was tempted to take his hand or give him a hug, I knew I couldn't. I hung my head, pursing my lips tightly together.
Miss Alice.
Just then, I felt the bed shift. Startled, I looked up to find Red sitting next to me, his face a deep scarlet. Then he put his hand on mine.
そのような顔しないでください。あなたは私が守ります。
Oh, he looks so awkward. He stared pointedly at the broken glass as he spoke. It must have taken tremendous courage to overcome his discomfort. Thank you. His kindness made my heart ache. Together, we cleaned up the shards of glass, then returned to the living room.
今夜はここで寝た方がいいかもしれません。
Yeah, maybe so. Not that I had much choice now that my bedroom window was broken. There were other bedrooms in the house, of course, but I didn't have keys to them, which meant I'd have to break down the door to get in. Not exactly ideal. I flopped down onto the sofa. Next thing I knew, a sheet of soft red velvet descended over me. What the?
私の頭巾です。その、あなたは風邪をひいていたわけですし。
Thank you. You're an angel.
そんなことはありません。
You sure? You're always looking out for me.
それはその。
Don't just stand there. Come over here and have a seat. I sat up to make room for him beside me on the sofa. After a moment of hesitation, he sat down, as far from me as possible. Sure enough, the moment we made eye contact, he pulled his hood down low. You're always wearing that riding hood, aren't you? You must be really attached to it. I didn't realise it was part of his daily wear. I thought it came with the uniform.
はい。
Where did you buy it?
いえ、もらったものです。
From that one friend you mentioned?
友人のおばあさんにです。
Whoa, she must be really talented. And she has an eye for style too.
そうなんです。おばあさんはとても器用で、料理も裁縫もできるんです。
He excitedly balled his hands into fists as he spoke.
すみません。
No, don't apologize. Tell me more.
あなたには関係のない話です。
So what? I still want to know. After a long pause, Red reluctantly gave in.
昔々のことです。私は生まれつき人と少し違っていて、そのせいで周囲に馴染めず、学校にも行かず、毎日一人で湖を眺めていました。そんな時出会ったのが友人でした。彼は無視し続ける私に対ししつこく話しかけました。正直鬱陶しかったのですが、彼が私を仲間だというので、しょうがなく一緒に遊ぶようになって、ある日彼は私を家に招待してくれました。彼はおばあさんと二人で暮らしているようで、おばあさんをとても慕っていました。彼のおばあさんは怒るととっても怖くて、でもとても優しくて、見ず知らずの他人である私にもいろいろとよくしてくれました。そんなおばあさんのことを嫌いになれるはずもなく、私は毎日遊びに行くようになりました。おばあさんはケーキを作るのが得意で、よく焼いてくれたり、破れた服を縫ってくれたり、面白い話をしてくれたり、私のことを本当によく可愛がってくれました。そんなある日、おばあさんは私に赤い頭巾をプレゼントしてくれました。誰かに物をもらったのは初めてだったので嬉しくて、いつもかぶっているうちにこの姿が当たり前のようになって、いつの間にか手放せないようになってしまいました。
Sounds like these people were both really important to you.
はい。
He smiled, a faint, wistful smile. But in the next instant, it was gone.
こんな時にでもあなたのご家族はあなたを心配なさらないのですか？
Huh?
あなたの危機だというのに、未だ連絡の一つもありません。
Oh, yeah. I smiled sadly.
あなたの家族は無責任です。いくら他にやることがあるからといって。
Do I disagree with his assessment? That my family is irresponsible and they should be worried about me regardless of how busy they are if I'm in this much danger. Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that. I do not disagree with this assessment. My lack of response brought him back to his senses.
失礼しました。あなたのご家族を他人である私がどうこう言う資格はありませんね。
Thank you.
え？
Thank you for worrying about me, for caring about me.
そんなんではありますような。あなたといると調子が狂う。
I try. Does it?
そうだです。
How so?
あなたと目が合うだけで変な動悸がして胸が苦しくなって、ついでに息も苦しくなって。でもどうしてもあなたのことが気になってつい目で追ってしまって。
Really?
さっきの話だって誰にも話す気なんてなかったのに。
So what? You don't like talking to me?
いやではありません。
So you do like it? Well?
好きです。勘違いするなよ。その好きっていうのはあなたが面白いからであって。
Uh-huh.
本当の私はこんなんじゃなくて、硬派で冷静で頭が良くて、誰かの力に頼らないで自分だけの力で行動する男なんです。
Yeah, I know. You're pretty dreamy. That's why being around you makes me so flustered, and talking to you is so much fun.
そうですか。
Yep.
私もあなたと一緒にいるのは悪くありません。
You're so awkward, I love how. He smiled dreamily. If he had a tail, I'm sure he'd be wagging it right about now.
なんで笑うんですか。
Oh, nothing. To be fair, I'd be wagging my tail too. I don't understand romance. I don't understand emotions. Especially not hers. How can I get her to notice me? When I arrived home at our little cottage, no one was there to greet me. It was so dark and quiet that, for a moment, it felt like all that boisterous fun earlier was merely a dream. When I flicked on the lights, I noticed a small amount of money on the table. This was my food money. You see, my mother worked at the flower shop. Just a sec. Is this a window or a cage here on the left? Kinda looks like a cage. Alright, anyway. She worked from morning until night and was rarely ever home. Whenever she did come home, however, she always left me some money for food. The house was always empty. No people, nothing. To me, this was normal. Emptiness was normal. And my heart was empty too. But recently, things had changed. Lately I despised going home. Each night I wished I could skip 12 hours ahead to the next day. I longed to spend my time in the sunshine with my two favourite people. I yearned for that warmth. My dinner at night could never compare to grandmother's home cooking earlier that day. I clutched the Red Riding Hood, her gift to me, in my hands. here in this empty house. It was my one and only treasure. I'm sorry, Lord. I'm a bad kid. Whenever my mother was around, she would always tell me,
いいこと？あなたは他の子と違ってとってもいい子なの。だからお外で遊んではダメ。周りのみんなは狼なの。狼はどんな悪いことをするかわからないから話しかけられても知らん顔をしているのですよ。お母さんがいない間ちゃんとお留守番してるのよ。もし誰かがこの家にやってきても決して中に入れてはいけません。はい、お母さん。
but I broke that promise. I disobeyed my mother, left the house, and even befriended a wolf. Not only that, but I received a gift from the wolf's grandmother, and I loved it with all my heart. I knew I was doing something wrong, and yet I just couldn't keep myself away from grandmother's house.
いらっしゃいませ。お花はどうですか？
One day, I randomly came to a stop outside the flower shop. The flowers on display were radiant and beautiful, as were the smiles of the women admiring them. Just then, I thought of grandmother. It occurred to me that perhaps she'd appreciate a return gift as a thank you for the Red Riding Hood. Unfortunately, I didn't have the money to buy flowers. So I decided to go looking for flowers in the forest. Fortunately, I managed to find a few small ones, so I picked them and headed off to grandmother's house.
あ、今日は遅かったじゃねえか。お、なんだその花。
I hung my head in shame.
どうしたんだ？
おばあさん、これ昨日のお礼に。
おや、かわいいお花だね。私にくれるのかい？どうもありがとう。
I held out the flowers I'd picked in the forest, and sure enough, she looked positively delighted.
赤ずきんちゃんは優しい子だね。その赤ずきん、そんなに気に入ったのかい？
うん。
ああ、そうかいそうかい。ならもう一枚作ってあげようね。
When grandmother praised me, it made me feel like maybe I wasn't such a bad kid after all.
おばあさん、喜んでくれてよかったな。
On my way home, I passed by the flower shop once again. The flowers there were all much bigger and more beautiful than the ones from the forest. In an instant, I quickly grew ashamed of myself. Perhaps she would have preferred a flower from the shop over some measly forest wildflowers. But with the money I had on hand, I could scarcely afford a little flower, much less a big, impressive one. So, what was my solution? Simple. I decided to save up my money.
お腹減ったな。
Oh. I didn't get an allowance, so instead I decided to use my food money as flower money. Oh, this little kid. Naturally, I still needed to eat, so I bought the cheapest canned food I could find and subsisted off of that.
おばあさん、喜んでくれるといいな。
The thought of her smiling face made it easier to ignore my hunger. In the meantime, I continued to pick flowers from the forest every day.
ありがとうね。赤ずきんちゃんはとってもいい子だよ。
Grandmother would praise me each time I brought her flowers. And each time I deluded myself into thinking I wasn't a bad kid. Then, one day, my friend said to me,
花なんて摘んでさ、めめしいんじゃねえの？
Rude? Flowers are good. Everyone likes flowers.
そうか？
そうだよ。男ならもっとでっかいことやろうぜ。
例えば？
例えば、そうだな。ここら辺は木が多いし、木の上に秘密基地作ろうぜ。そこなら誰にも邪魔されずに好きなことできるぞ。
All boys like secret bases, huh?
ダメだ。それはいけないっておばあさんに言われてるだろ。
Because my friend had a weak constitution, he was barred from strenuous physical activity. Thus, grandmother had asked me to watch over him and make sure he didn't run himself ragged.
ちょっとぐらい平気だって。
ダメだ。
As I protested, my friend grew red in the face and began to shout at me.
なんだよ、いいこぶってさ。
別にそんなんじゃ。
いいこぶるんならなんでこんなところでサボってるんだよ。普通ならもっと他にやることあるだろう。
それはお母さんが言っちゃダメだって。
お母さんがなんだよ。お前だって母さんとの約束破ってここに来てんだろ。
それは。
お前の母さんおかしいよ。お前のことほっぽって自分は遊び歩いてるんだろ。
That's rude. Stop it.
俺見たぜ。お前の母さんが男の人と歩いてるの。
Stop it, stop it, stop it.
こら、なんてこと言うんだい。
なんでばあちゃんはこいつの味方するんだよ。
今のはあんたが悪い。
なんだよ、俺が悪いって。悪いのはこいつだって同じだろ。
As he spoke, he pointed at me. He was right, of course. I knew I was a bad child deep down.
ばあちゃんは俺のだろ。ばあちゃんの孫は俺だ。俺のばあちゃんだ。
Just then, he doubled over, clutching at his chest. All the colour drained from his face as he grimaced in pain.
大丈夫かい？
Grandmother dashed over to him in a hurry, and in the process, she dropped the flowers I had given her. As he writhed in pain, she held him close and spoke in a shaky voice.
大丈夫だからね。おばあちゃんがいるからね。しっかりするんだよ。おばあちゃん。
That was the moment I understood. I could act like an angel and give her flowers all I wanted, but I would never be her real grandson. The sun rose on the horizon. Meanwhile, Red was sound asleep on the sofa. He must have been exhausted after everything that happened yesterday. I stroked his head through the fabric of his riding hood. Truth be told, I was tempted to take his hood off, but I knew better. After all, that Red Riding Hood meant the world to him. No one but him had the right to remove it. I leaned in and whispered in his ear, "I'm going to fix you, Red." 2 hours later. Oh, good morning, Red. I was in the middle of making breakfast when Red sat up on the sofa. He froze in place for a moment. Maybe he wasn't entirely awake yet. Red? I raised my voice a little louder.
おはようございます。
He looked at me sleepily. Definitely not quite awake yet.
そうだ、狼は。
What about him? Red seized me by the shoulders.
何もなかったか？怪我は？
No.
起きてるならなんで起こさなかった？あなたは狼に狙われているんですよ。何かあってからでは遅いんです。
I'd have woken you up if he turned up. Oh, I'm sorry. At least you didn't scream at me this time.
うわあ！すみません。
Oh, no, it's fine. Spoke too soon. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. It's just, you looked so peaceful, and I couldn't bear to ruin it.
気を使わないでください。あなたがどうにかなった方が心配だ。
I'm sorry. I'll be sure to wake you next time.
約束ですよ。
I promise. Normally I would have liked to do a pinky swear, but given his condition, I was better off not pushing my luck. Oh, that reminds me. Breakfast is ready.
朝ごはん。
As soon as he saw what was waiting for him on the table, his eyes grew round as saucers.
これは。
It's a skillet cake. After you mentioned baking cakes yesterday, I felt like making one myself. I was hoping to make it a little fancier than this, but I didn't have enough time or ingredients on hand. Sorry. The cake itself was baked in a skillet using soft wheat flour and baking soda. Then I added whipped cream, jam, and mint leaves as a garnish. Sounds tasty. I want a cake now. All told, it was still a rather plain cake, but at least this way it resembled something along the lines of a chiffon cake.
いえ、十分豪華です。おばあさんの作るケーキはこんなおしゃれじゃなくて、もっとシンプルでしたから。
Oh, really? I should have asked for more details. Can you tell me more about them?
作っていただけるのですか？
Yeah. No promises, of course, but I'll give it my best shot. I am pretty handy in the kitchen, after all.
知っています。
This time it was my turn to look at him in surprise. Usually he'd always eat my cooking in complete silence, so his opinion of my skill had always been a total mystery until now.
食べてもいいですか？
Oh, yes, of course. He sliced off a forkful, then shoved it into his mouth. How is it?
おいしいです。
Really? Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. Go ahead and have as much as you like, okay? I can make as many of these as you want. Oh, and also, do you have any other requests or favourite dishes? Just say the word and I'll do my best to make as much as you want. I got so excited I started babbling at 1,000 miles a minute, and kept repeating as much as you want for some reason.
あなたは。
What? In contrast to my giddiness, Red looked somewhat conflicted. I tilted my head at him, encouraging him to speak his mind.
いいえ、何でもありません。
It had now been a week since I received the first blackmail letter, and 5 days since Red's arrival at my house. Once again, I was headed off to school. I wasn't going to let anything stop me, not even the big bad wolf and his mean, scary blackmail.
本当に行くんですか？
Yep.
休んだ方がよろしかったのでは？あなたは狼に狙われているんですよ。
So you think I should just hide in my house forever? I don't think so.
あなたは危機感が薄いんですよ。どうにかなった後では遅いんです。
Red has been bickering with me about this all morning. It's strange. He never would have acted like this just a few short days ago. But maybe this was to be expected. After all, I was being pursued by a scary, vicious wolf. What's the problem? You'll protect me, won't you?
当然です。あなたがどこにいようと、私が駆けつけて、あなたを悪漢から守ります。
Sounds like I can really count on you.
当然です。私は警察官ですから。
Right. Hey, we both started talking at the same time, then both hesitated in unison as well. You first.
いえ、そちらこそどうぞ。
With neither of us willing to go first, an awkward silence descended between us. We were getting nowhere fast, so eventually I caved. What do you plan to do after the case is closed?
どうするつもりって。
When I asked you last time, you said you'd leave as soon as the wolf is apprehended, right?
それは当然です。職務を果たしたのですから。
I see. Silence descended between us once more. I decided to give him a little nudge to help get the ball rolling. What were you going to say?
はい。私は。
He faltered. The light seemed to leave his eyes.
やっぱり何でもありません。
I really want to know. Oh.
何ですか？狼ですか？
No, I just realized we're almost at the school. We're already almost at the school.
はい。
Well, anyway, I'll be going now. I gracefully spun on my heel and turned towards the school building.
はい。お気をつけて。
I quickly found, however, that I was unable to move. Why, you ask? Because Red had grabbed me by the arm and was refusing to let me go. All at once he leapt away, his face flushed scarlet.
すみません。つい。
No, it's fine. Evidently he wasn't even quite sure why he'd grabbed me.
なぜ私はこんなことを。
He shrank down into a ball as he mumbled to himself. Much as I wanted to stay and relish the moment, I had classes to attend. I crouched down and looked into his eyes. Okay, I really gotta go now.
はい。
He jumped to attention and saw me off with a dutiful salute. What's wrong? Feeling sick or something?
ああ、そうだな。お前の顔が気持ち悪くてな。
Rude. Rude? If you keep bullying me, I'm not going to make your lunch anymore.
いらねえって言ってるのに、毎回作ってよこしてるのはお前の方だろうが。
Oh, right.
随分とご機嫌なようだが、奴とは仲良くやってるみたいだな。
That obvious, huh? Anyway, yes, things are going well. Better than they were before at any rate. It's been a busy week to say the least. I slumped my shoulders.
なんだそんな顔して。疲れたか
His expression didn't shift a fraction, but his tone took on a hint of amusement. Exhausted, actually. Did you see the damage? Flower beds trampled, house ransacked, and a broken window. That's crossing a line.
俺に言ってもしょうがないだろ
I mean, yeah, but... Is Wolf out sick again today?
ああ、そうだな。今日は見舞いに行く日だろ
Yep, I even baked a cake. I held up my wicker basket containing small get-well gifts.
ああ、そうか。
You don't care at all, do you?
どう返せって言うんだ
If Wolf were here, he'd say, "Whoa, you for reals? That's so awesome. I knew I could count on you, Stana." Or something along those lines. Sadly, my imitation of Wolf, which I'll have you know was extremely accurate, didn't win me any points with Mr. Huntsman. Don't give me that look. It's like talking to a brick wall. This is why you can never keep a girlfriend, you know?
勝手に言い寄ってきて、勝手に幻滅してるだけだろ
Sure, buddy. Don't blame me when you end up alone at age 40.
どうでもいいな。
With that comeback, Mr. Huntsman pulled a lollipop out of his jacket pocket and started to unwrap it.
そんなことより、狼の家に見舞いに行くんだろあいつには俺から連絡しといてやるよ。突然来られても迷惑だろうしな。
Thank you.
じゃあ帰れ。
Oh, come on. Let's keep chatting a little more.
俺はな、お前と違って暇ではないんだ。
But we're on lunch break. He frowned at me, the lollipop stick poking out from between his lips. Let's talk. Mr. Huntsman, am I a bad person?
ああ、そうだな。悪い子だ。というわけだ。帰れ。
No crime goes unpunished. Which means I must get my just desserts here soon. Mr. Huntsman listened to me intently.
狼か
Yes.
まあ、脅迫状からわかる通り、狼は独自の正義感の持ち主のようだからな。何をしでかすかわからん。
Are you worried? That's so sweet. I wonder what Red's up to right now.
お前を監視してるんだろ
Yeah, to keep me safe.
嬉しそうだな。
I know. Messed up, isn't it? As I spoke, I wandered to the window. Outside, Red was patrolling around the school gates, looking anxious. Think he'll come over here?
来ないだろ
There's still so much I don't know about him.
今更すぎるだろ だいたい1週間も経ってないのに相手のことがわかるわけないだろ
Ugh.
どうせお前のことだから一緒にいるうちに好きになってちょっといい雰囲気になったからって告白でもしたんだろ
No, I haven't.
まだだろお前はオープンすぎて 一般人の感性に合わないんだ。少しは自重しろ。売られてもいいのか？
Honestly, I could live with that.
はあ、そういえばお前はそうだったな。
I don't care if the one I love rejects me, as long as it means he'll be happy.
相変わらずよくわからん思考回路だな。
I mean, honestly, same, Eureka. Honestly, same. Isn't that your job? Or is that hunter license just for show?
漁師だからこそ言うんだろ。
I smirked at him. Then, as my gaze casually drifted to the window, I spotted Red glancing around nervously as he headed into the school building. Oh!
なんだ？
He's coming this way. I gotta go.
ユリカ。
Yes?
狼には気をつけろよ。
Red,
ミス・アリス。
what are you doing here? He pressed his index finger to his lips. Then he gestured for us to move towards the bushes, so I obliged. No, really, what's going on?
すみません。見つかったら追い出されるかと思って。
I wanted to disagree, but instead I laughed vaguely.
とりあえず、無事でよかった。
Of course I'm safe here. I've got my very own support network.
そういえば、ご友人がいるんでしたっけ？
Yeah, he's part of it, but he's been out sick since yesterday.
昨日から？
Yeah, didn't I tell you? He caught a cold. The look on his face suggested he had only just remembered. But that's no big deal. Not like anything's happened, you know. I gave a cute little shrug. This time he looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Haven't seen that one in a while. Plus, it's not like I don't have other friends.
まあ、言いたいことはいろいろとありますが、とにかく、あなたが無事でよかった。
He heaved a sigh of relief. On further inspection, he looked a bit pale for some reason. Is something wrong?
いえ、
Are you feeling sick? Is your fever flaring up again?
いえ、違います。ただ、あまりここにはいたくないというか。
After a moment of contemplation, I clapped my hands together. Alright then, let's skip school.
え？
I wanted to go visit my friend anyway, so this works out perfectly.
何を突然？
Ignoring his palpable hesitation, I took a few steps forward, then spun on my heel. We're going on a date, Red.
デート？デート、デート、デート、デート。
Hello, Earth's Red. I waved my hand in front of his face.
すみません。つい、ぼーっとして。
It's fine.
いいんですか？サボったりなんかして。
Yeah, I don't care. Truth be told, I'm no angel.
そんなことは。
Normally I'd like to take you someplace fancy like a movie theatre, but that'll have to wait for another time. And so we found ourselves at the lakeshore. During weekdays, the entire forest area was deserted, enabling a relative level of privacy. Personally, I was in the mood to break out our lunchboxes and have a picnic. So I stabbed my fork into one of the bacon-wrapped asparagus spears and offered it to Red. Say ah. No. Say ah. Nope,
できるわけないでしょ
Blushing, he quickly leaned back. Darn. Oh well, I tried. I promptly gave up and put the fork in my own mouth instead.
あ
What was that?
なんでもないです
His pouty face was so unbearably adorable, I couldn't help but swoon a little. Oh yeah, and I've got some leftover cake from breakfast, so let me know if you'd like some.
はい
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. The word cake reminded me of something else. Could you tell me more about your friend's grandma's cake? Did she give you the recipe?
レシピまではただ緑色をしたケーキで中にブドウみたいなものが入っていました
Grapish things. Purple cake, huh? Purple in colour with grapish things inside. What did it taste like?
ほんのりと甘かったです渋みはそれほどなくて形や食感はあなたが作ってくれたものとよく似ています
Sounds like my recipe isn't too far off then. I just need to change up the ingredients. What will you add to make the cake purple? I mean, only one of these things goes in cake, right? Like, you don't put red cabbage or eggplant in cake. They're both savoury, right? So it's gotta be blueberries. Definitely blueberries. What will you use for the grape-like things? Actual grapes, beans, or raisins? Definitely not beans. For in cake? Raisins. Raisins for in cake. Raisins. I think I might know what to do. Maybe.
本当ですか
Yeah, I'll give it a try sometime. Oh, but then again, you're going to leave right after you catch the wolf, so...
あなたがいいと言うなら私が遊びに行きます
Ah, yes.
ほらそれに前にあなたが言ったじゃないですか春の庭が綺麗だと
Of course you can visit me, silly. You're always welcome at my house.
ありがとうございます
He smiled shyly.
私はいつもあなたにもらってばかりいますね私からも何かお返しできればよいのですが
You are, silly. You're guarding me right now, aren't you?
それは当然のことですから
And you took care of me when I was sick. And you made me porridge and you bought me a flower.
それは
If anything, you're the one spoiling me. So if there's ever anything I can do for you, just say the word. What the? What was lewd about that? Does he just have his mind in the gutter 24/7?
すみません
He swayed unsteadily, his hand clutched over his nose. Are you okay?
大丈夫です
Find my foot, you look white as a sheet. In response to his blatant... I'm sorry, what kind of options are these? In response to his blatant deceit, you clothesline him or tickle him. What kind of response is than these. Oh no. It's gonna be tickle him, right? It's gotta be tickle him. Please sign him is a little on the violent side. I mean, against him, tickle him is a little on the violent side too, but tickle him. Summoning my resolve, I got to my feet. Red.
Hi.
Take this! Once his guard was down, I lunged at him and tickled his sides.
Ah! やめてください
Good, good. That's the reaction I was hoping for. In the heat of the moment, I pushed him down. With me sitting on top of him and smirking, Red froze stock still like an ice sculpture. So I took that opportunity to shift into a lap pillow position. Once I lifted his head and placed it on my thighs, Red snapped back to reality.
No!
Face. That's good. It's the lap pillow trope you didn't know you wanted.
太ももが頭に太
Quiet down now. I looked down at him sharply. Nose gushing blood, Fred opened and shut his mouth repeatedly, but no words came. Meanwhile, his complexion was a kaleidoscope of colours, flushed one minute and pallid the next. If you keep bleeding this much every day, you're going to end up anemic. I pulled out a handkerchief and mopped him up.
Miss Alice.
Yes? He called my name between gasps of breath. As I peered down at him, however, he averted his gaze.
なんでもありません
You're like a broken record today. I stroked the golden strands of hair peeking out from beneath his hood.
うわ
Oh, sorry. I wasn't thinking.
いえ
If you don't like this, just say the word and we can stop. I know what you're thinking. Oh, now you ask. And all I have to say is this. Better late than never. He didn't respond. I guess that means he's fine with it. After an awkward silence, Fred seemed to regain his composure.
あなたはいつもこのようなことを私以外にもするのですか
What?
例えば今からお見舞いに行くというご友人とかに
No, no, just you, really.
本当の私を知っても
What do you mean, the real you?
あいや
He fell silent, grimacing. I stared at him intently. As I recall, the real you is... What was it you said? Stoic, rational, smart, and self-reliant? I recited his professed self-image back to him.
そうですけれど本当はそうではなくて本当の私はすごく弱くてそれにとても卑怯な人間です私は本当はとても悪い人間なんです
Red? I'm the same way, you know.
あなたもですか？
Yeah, the real me is dark and twisted. Maybe it's no wonder the wolf has it out for me. I gave him a pained smile.
たとえそうだったとしても、あなたは私が守ります。
Right. Thank you. You really are a sweetheart, you know that?
そうですか。
He looked to be on the verge of tears, so I gently stroked his head. This time he didn't make a fuss about it, he just quietly accepted it. Then, after a moment, he whispered,
狼を捕まえたら、狼を捕まえたら、あなたにお話ししたいことがあります。
Oh. You can't tell me right now?
はい。今はまだ。
Well, okay. Once you've caught the big bad wolf, I'll be right there to hear you out. He pursed his lips together like he was biting back all the pain in his heart. His golden blonde lashes seemed to be trembling.
数日前までの自分はいつも一人でこんな風に誰かと一緒に過ごすなんて考えられなかった。
Wanna give him head pats? Does the solitude bother you?
あなたと一緒です。もう随分と一人でいるので慣れてしまいました。寂しいとか嫌いだとかそういった感覚はとっくにどこかへと置き忘れてしまいました。
Did you, though? Are you sure you stopped? If you ask me, I bet you never once stopped hating it. Sure, maybe you were alone at one point, but then your friend came along, right? And then you met a sweet old grandma. You really think you could go back after that? I think deep down, you've been conscious of your loneliness this whole time. But look at us now, Red. I have you, and you have me. And there's more to this story. So much more. I just wish you'd open your eyes and see it. One sunny afternoon found me standing outside the flower shop, hesitant. I was torn, unsure which flower to buy, unsure which would make grandmother the happiest. At last I had saved up enough money to purchase flowers from the store. All those nights of going hungry would finally be worth it. I was in high spirits, excited for the gorgeous bouquet my money could afford. Red, white, pink, purple, yellow. The flower shop was awash in colours. Personally, I was partial to red. After all, it was the same colour as the riding hood grandmother had given me. And in my eyes, that made it a special colour. My attention was drawn to the roses, which stood out among the rest of the red blooms. I was by no means an expert at flowers, but roses were familiar at least. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford a full bouquet of them when the price for even a single rose was exorbitant.
もっとお金貯めようかな。
I could afford to wait, after all. Just then, someone called out to me.
あ、いた。こんなところにいたのかよ。探したぜ。
あ、
チャーッセ。何やってんだよ、赤ずきん。
It was unusual of him to track me down.
別に何でもない。
まあいいよ。なあ、今から湖の方に行こうぜ。
湖？ああ、別にいいけど。
And so, at my friend's insistence, we headed to the lake where we first met. There, he told me he'd gotten into an argument with grandmother.
喧嘩した？
あ
あんなに仲がいいのに。
だってばあちゃんうっせえんだもん。俺が大丈夫って言ってんのに、あれしちゃダメこれしちゃダメってさ。
それはお前を思ってのことだろ？
分かってるよ。
According to him, they'd gotten into an argument over a small trifle, leading him to run away from home.
でも俺はもっと外で遊びたいんだ。思いっきり走りたい。遠くにだって行きたい。それなのにいつまでもこんなちっちゃいところでおとなしくなんてしてらんねえぜ。
I felt sorry for him. He was born with a weak constitution that made strenuous physical activity dangerous.
お前はいいよな。俺なんかと違って強くてさ。冷静で頭が良くて、誰かの力に頼らないで自分の力だけで行動する狼のような男を目指してたはずなんだけどな。今のままじゃ俺は狼になれない。だから俺はお前が羨ましいよ。
I was startled to hear this. Never imagined he would ever say such a thing. Unlike me, he had everything. He was smart and confident and extroverted and rich. The more I learned about him, the more he felt like he was from a different world entirely. And yet now he claimed he wished he was me. It was simply unbelievable.
きっとお前と出会えてなかったら毎日つまんなかったんだろうな。
楽しい？
そうだよ。お前と話してるとすっげえ刺激があって面白えよ。
He dismissed my doubts with a laugh.
なあなあ、今日は夜まで付き合いよ。そんでさ、秘密基地作ろうぜ。俺さ、家からお宝持ってきたから、お前も見るだろ？見たいだろ？な！
And so I agreed to his proposal. Was it because I'd seen a new side of him? Was I tickled by the thought of him envying me? I couldn't say. But if only I'd had the sense to stop him then, things never would have turned out the way they did. We decided to build our tree fort deep in the woods. Meanwhile, I kept watch to ensure he didn't overexert himself. First, we collected tree branches, cardboard boxes, and other materials. Then I climbed up our chosen tree and used rope to affix them per my friend's instructions. According to him, this was how tree forts were made. Time flew by, and soon the sun began to set.
大量大量。
In our search for materials, we came across a large quantity of wooden planks. As we were hauling them back, however, we heard sirens in the distance.
なんだかうるさいな。
Just then I got a really bad feeling. Dread crept into my heart.
なあ、今日はこれくらいにしてもう帰らないか？
Oh no, what's happened?
今日は夜まで付き合うって約束だっただろ。男と男の誓いを忘れたか？
忘れてないけど。
じゃあ最後まで付き合え。
わかった。
あ、そうだなあ、さっき湖でいいもの見つけたんだ。
いいもの？
This something cool was a blue tarp floating on the lake's surface. I mean, that is pretty useful for a tree fort, right? You can put it on the roof and then the water don't get in. Neither of us knew what it was doing here. Maybe it was blown here by the wind.
見ろ、あれがあれば雨をしのげるぞ。
でも遠いぞ。まさか湖に入るわけにはいかないし。
木の棒を使えばなんとかなりそうだな。
Positioning himself on the very end of the lake pier, he used a tree branch to attempt to reel the tarp in. Unfortunately, the tarp was at the mercy of the lake's tide, which pulled it back and forth.
もう少し。
Oh no, it's gonna be real bad if this boy falls in the lake, right? If he's got a weak constitution.
無理するな。私がやる。
いい、俺がやる。
With a firm hold on his calves to keep him from falling in, I kept a close eye on him.
こんなところにいたのか。
Just then, a hard-eyed man came dashing out of the forest.
フードをかぶってる方。お前が狼か。
You know, that's what I thought, alright? It's Wolf, isn't it? It's the other boy. That's what I thought in some of the CGs previously. Because he looked like he was wearing a similar thing. The man grabbed me by the arm.
お前のおばあさんが倒れたんだ。今病院に運ばれた。
Oh no.
ずっと孫の名前を呼んでる。早く言ってやれ。
ばあちゃん。
Just then there was a loud splash. My friend had slipped and fallen into the lake. Because he was forbidden from most physical activity, naturally he didn't know how to swim.
ち、
The man whipped off his jacket. Unsure what to do, I just stood there.
お前は早く行け。お前のおばあさんがお前を待ってる。
Oh no. He gave me a little push. I was torn between my friend drowning right in front of me and grandmother, who had allegedly been whisked away to the hospital. After a fraction of a second, I turned my back on my friend and took off running. Oh no! Yeah, this isn't going to turn out well, is it? At all.
おばあさん。
When I arrived, I found grandmother lying in a hospital bed.
なんで。
I didn't understand what had happened. Just yesterday she was the very picture of health, but today she stared blankly up at the ceiling, her face pale and lifeless.
どなた。もしかして狼ちゃんかい。
Evidently her eyes weren't working, or else she would have known it was me.
うん。俺だよ、おばあちゃん。
I lowered my voice to try to sound more like my friend.
おお、来てくれたんだね。
Oh
ありがとうね。
no. Oh no, oh no, oh no.
うん。俺、おばあちゃんが心配で。
ごめんね。おばあちゃん、心配かけちゃったね。
Tears poured from her unseeing eyes. The sight made my own eyes grow hot, but I blinked back the tears and focused on my act.
本当だぜ。すげえ心配したんだぜ。
おばあちゃんも狼ちゃんのことがずっと心配だったんだよ。
うん、違う。ばあちゃんは謝らなくていいんだ。全部俺が悪いんだ。俺が悪い子だから。
そんなことない。お前が悪い子だなんて誰が思うもんですか。お前はとてもいい子だよ。おばあちゃんの自慢の子だ。
ばあちゃん。ばあちゃん、ごめんな。俺、本当はおばあちゃんのことをすっげえ好きだぜ。
おばあちゃんも狼ちゃんのことが大好きだよ。この先もずっと一緒にいて守ってやりたいけど。
そんなこと言うなよ。これからも一緒にいてくれよ。俺、これからもっと元気になるからさ。俺が元気になった姿見たいだろ。俺、 足だって速いし、水の中も泳げるんだ。木登りだって誰にも負けねえよ。だから俺を置いていかないで。
I choked out the words through my sobs. This was more proof that I was a bad kid. I was supposed to be a stand-in for my friend, but instead I was telling her my own feelings.
そうだ、俺ばあちゃんのために花束買ってきたんだ。花好きだろ？
花？
ああ、野に咲く花じゃなくて、ちゃんとした花屋で買った花なんだぜ。
I showed her the bouquet I had hastily purchased on my way here.
カーネーションって言うんだってさ。
Carnations were similar to roses, except softer and less intimidating. Much like grandmother herself.
そうかい。きっと綺麗な花なんだろうね。
うん。すごく綺麗なんだ。
Standing at her bedside, I took her hand and brushed it against the flowers. The red petals formed the perfect backdrop for her wizened old hand.
ああ、本当だ。すごく綺麗だ。ありがとう。お前はとても優しい、いい子だよ。
She smiled softly and closed her eyes. Oh no. I don't remember much of what happened after that. I'm not sure what happened to grandmother or how I got home from the hospital. I just remember standing outside my house. This time, the lights were on inside. Was my mother home? By that point, it was late at night. She must have realized that I disobeyed her. Would she yell at me? Would she cry?
ただいま。
When I opened the door, I found my answer. It was then that I understood my mother wasn't going to yell at me, nor would she hug me. She looked at me with cold, unfeeling eyes. And after that day, she never came home again. Dear Lord, where did I go wrong? If I had obeyed my mother, if I had never ventured outside, if I had never spoken with that wolf, maybe this tragedy could have been averted. But now I am alone. Now I have no one. No one needs me. This is only natural, of course, because this is my punishment for being bad.
これからはもう二度と道草なんか
The
しない。
child. That was the vow I made to myself. Oh. Red, your backstory.
ミス・アリス。ゆりかさん。うわっ
When I opened my eyes, I found Red blushing beet red. Oh, sorry. Guess I nodded off for a minute there.
いえいえいえ、とんでもございません。
His behaviour struck me as suspicious, but at the same time, it was pretty par for the course where he was concerned, so I wasn't too worried. I looked around to find that the bright light of midday had now faded to twilight. Gosh, it's gotten late. I guess I was a little too comfy.
確か友人のお宅に伺う予定でしたね。
Yeah, I want to check on him. Red lifted his head out of my lap and got to his feet. He offered a hand to help me up, immediately retracted it, then offered it again, more timidly this time.
どうぞ。
You sure?
いいです。
He turned his flushed face away from me. Thank you. With his large masculine hand, he hauled me up onto my feet.
早く行きましょう。夜遅くなるとこの辺は危ないですから。
Okay. The house marked on the map was a good 30-minute walk from the lake into the woods. It's supposed to be around here. I swiveled my head all around, but it was a forest. All the trees looked the same, so I had no landmarks to go by. Red followed half a step behind me. He seemed to have gotten quiet. Yeah, this is going to be a thing now that we've found out that the friend in Red's memories is definitely Wolf, and that's who we're going to go visit. This could be interesting. Whoa! I slipped in some mud and nearly lost my balance, but Red caught me before I fell.
気をつけてください。この辺りは足場も悪いですから。
Sorry about that. Thanks for the help. He let go of my arm and walked ahead of me.
私の後ろをついて歩いてきてください。
He didn't bother to turn back as he spoke. Normally, I would be touched by his thoughtfulness, but his voice was cold and distant, like it was back when we first met. Okay. And so I slowly followed in his footsteps. Is this the place? Eventually we arrived at a single cottage deep in the forest. Red stopped short, staring at the ground. I walked past him and right up to the front door. At my feet lay a single red flower. A carnation? It was bright and healthy looking, almost like it was fresh from the flower shop. I turned back to find Red still staring down at the ground. I scooped up the carnation and knocked on the door. Is anyone home? But no matter how hard I knocked, no one answered. For a moment I thought perhaps we had the wrong place, but this was the only house in the vicinity. Hesitantly I twisted the doorknob. Strangely enough, it was unlocked. The lights were all off, but the moonlight streaming in through the window faintly illuminated the interior. As I peered inside, out of nowhere someone clapped a hand over my mouth. They wrapped their arms around me, pinning me in place. Then, before I could even scream, they dragged me off somewhere. Ow, that hurts! Quit pulling so hard!
うるせえな。ここでおとなしく待ってろ。
Okay, that doesn't sound like Wolf. Whoa! He shoved me from behind and I toppled to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Ow! With no time to brace myself, I hit the floor hard.
ああ、すまん。
I glared up at him. He didn't look very sorry at all. Yeah, I thought that's who it sounded like. What are you doing here? He leaned against the wall and returned my gaze with his almond-shaped eyes. Why are you doing this?
お前が勝手な行動を起こさないよう保険だよ保険。何せお前は大事な人質なんだからな。
Here in this forest cottage, my captor was none other than Mr. Huntsman. He reached into his pockets, took out a pack of cigarettes, and set one between his lips. No smoking!
こんな時でもうっせえな。
Nope, Not now, not ever. With guys like these, you have to take the hardline approach. Holding the cigarette between his fingers, Mr. Huntsman let out a shallow sigh.
わかってるだろうが、くれぐれも外に出るんじゃないぞ。じゃあな。
And with that cold, unfeeling comment, he shut the door. Red. I sat down on the bed and tucked my knees under my chin. When Mr. Huntsman kidnapped me, Red didn't move an inch. Not that I blamed him. It was all really sudden and unexpected, so he probably wasn't sure how to react. But for some reason, the memory of his pained expression made my chest ache. I hope he'll come to my rescue.
残念ながら彼は来ないよ。
Who's there?
彼は君がさらわれてしまったという現実に耐えかねて道草してしまった。
Oh, this is the wizard guy again, right? That's...
あるはずないと言えるかい？彼は素直で騙されやすい。そんな彼の目の前で守るべき対象だった君がさらわれたんだ。彼の心は深く傷つき、自らの罪と向き合えず、罪を重ねてしまってもおかしくはない。
Huh?
そして今君も罪を重ねてしまった。そしてこの僕も。
Mm-hmm. Oh. Well, apparently I messed that up somewhere. I have no idea at what point I messed that up. That's... Yeah. I don't like that. So... Oh. Right, let's go grab the last autosave. Because that's probably going to be the response I messed up on, right? Because there hasn't been another choice in a while. Alright, so let's grab that last autosave. So not tickle him, clothesline him then. That really doesn't feel like it's the right answer, but sure. Summoning my resolve, I got to my feet. Red?
Hi.
Then I ran at him with my arm outstretched and clotheslined him. My arm struck him square in the neck and the two of us toppled to the ground. He watched blankly as I sat upright, shifted around behind him and put his head on my lap. Okay, so we're back to this again. Right, so I'm just gonna skip through? No, this isn't a skip. Okay, this is not the same scene. It's the lap pillow trope you didn't know you wanted. Nervous much? Now let's all forget I just clotheslined the guy I have a crush on. Quiet down now. Okay, there we got a previously read thing at the corner, so we can just skip our way back through here again. And that still hits the bad end. Oh boy. I have no idea how far back I messed this up. I don't have a clue how far back I messed this up. Huh. So the previous choices were about the cake. Right? They were about the cake. So, okay, what if I load the second cake choice, or the do I disagree with his... Okay, let's just slowly work our way back through the choices and see what went, see if we can work it out, I guess. Alright. So, we tried raisins. Let's try actual grapes. Alright, skip. And then let's try tickle this time. And is it still gonna go to the same thing? Yep. Alright. Alright, load that one again. Clothesline option. Skip. Nope, that's the same. It's probably not really the cake, is it? It's probably the one before the cake, right? 'Cause I feel like the cake was... We could pick stupid options for the cake, but I'm not sure about... Alright, shall we go back to do you disagree with his assessment? Let's go back to that. So, how about I will disagree with this? That's not true. Of course my parents are worried about me, and if I really wanted to get in touch with them I could. I just haven't tried.
なぜですか?
Because I don't want to cause problems. I don't want to be a burden. Besides, it's not like they can protect me better than the police can. I'm sure they feel much more at ease knowing you're here with me. You know what they say, if you want it done right, hire a professional. And I accept that. I've always accepted that. That's just how my family is. And in a sense, it's proof of their trust in me.
私にはよく理解できません。
That's okay. Most people can't. It might seem heartless, but this pragmatism is just another way of keeping the system running. And I can appreciate it.
あなたは大人ですね。
I would hope so. I'm technically an adult after all. I giggled, hoping to lighten the mood.
あなたといると調子が狂う。
Right. Skip. Right, will this fix it? Right, let's go with the same options for the cake. Blueberries and raisins. The same ones I picked the first time. And then tickle him. Nope. I don't know what I did. Clothesline him? Nope. Should we just do weird things with cake ingredients? Let's do weird things with cake ingredients. This one. Alright. To make the cake purple, let's go with red cabbage. And beans. And tickle them. Nope. I don't have a clue how far back I messed this one up. What options have we had recently? Aside from that, that was the cake. That was the Will you hold? I mean, that was entirely last session. Right, I think I'm gonna have to call it. Oh. But even if I call it there's no way I can. Without a guide, I don't think I can figure out where I went wrong. And I swore for this that I wasn't going to touch one. So let's just quickly go back to this one and do the clothesline instead. This is probably still going to go back to the same spot, isn't it? Yep. Oh man. I really don't want to just accept that ending as the ending I'm gonna get. Ah. Right, okay. I'm gonna end it here, and I'm gonna... I'll brute force it off stream and see if I can get to a point where the story will actually continue before I do another stream for this. Because it's really disappointing if it ends there. But also, I said I wasn't going to use a guide. But also, I'm sure you don't want to sit here while I try, like, every option going through the entire game again. Because that would probably be just pretty boring to watch. Alright then. Yeah, that's gonna be it for today then. If you enjoyed your time here, consider subscribing or follow me on Twitter. The schedule for next week will go up at some point by the end of tomorrow. And I guess it's gonna have another session of Diali on it. I was really hoping I might be able to actually finish this today. Oh well. Thanks for coming along and watching. It's been... I mean, it was fun till I got ridiculously stuck just then. So yeah. Kalla signing off. See ya. Bye bye.